I'm Melanie Youngsma, publisher of the Lansing Journal. The Lansing Journal is Lansing's only newspaper. We work hard to keep our diverse community informed and connected by reporting, publishing, and delivering local, independent news every single day. You can subscribe to the Lansing Journal for free because we believe everyone should have equal access to the information we provide. Of course, providing free news does cost money, so we depend on financial support from our readers and viewers, and we trust people to give what they can, when they can, and we appreciate your investment. If you've been following the Lansing Journal's weekly videos for a while now, you know that this year has been a time of transition for us. Most recently, we said goodbye to our managing editor, Josh Bootsma. He is transitioning into a new ministry role with his church, and we wish him great success with that. His transition means transition here at the Lansing Journal as well. Not only was Josh our managing editor, he also provided a lot of reporting and news coverage, and we want to make sure that we maintain that same quantity and quality of coverage in our community. So we are figuring out ways to do that. This past week, I started experimenting with videoing our village board meetings. Now, we have done video coverage of Thornton Township board meetings for the past 2 years for a number of reasons. This week was the first time I brought tripod and camera to a village board meeting and recorded the whole thing. I published 3 stories out of that village board meeting, and all 3 of them included video clips that I think were helpful in sharing information out of that meeting. The one I want to talk about this week is the 3rd story, the story about the village budget. The story itself is pretty basic, but some things became clear to me while I was working on that story, because I had also been involved in Thornton Township meetings where the budget was being discussed. So having that so recently in my memory, and then and having video of that, and also having video from the Lansing Village Board meeting where they discussed the budget, it really made the contrast stark. Now, budgeting is a normal process in every governing body, in every business, in many households. Budgeting is simply the process of identifying the resources you have so that you can assign them to the work you want to get done. Now, when it's a governing body, elected officials, the state of Illinois has rules about the budgeting process, and those rules are intended to allow the public to be informed about the process, or at least aware of what's going on. This is public money that is being assigned, and so the public has a right to know about it. Part of being a public official is knowing the process and following those rules. That's just basic governance. It was Lansing resident Paul Roberts who pointed out that Thornton Township was not following the prescribed timeline. In fact, they published the timeline in their budget. They did make a budget available as a PDF, finally, and Paul read it. He read the whole thing. And on page 14, he noticed that there are steps that should be followed when releasing the budget. None of those steps is being followed. And that's why people were so angry when they showed up for the May 28 meeting, which was canceled, and then the May 31 meeting, which was scheduled in the middle of the day. They were angry because they had not been informed about the budgeting process. And apparently their elected officials knew that there is a process in place and ignored it. Let me compare that to what happened in Lansing. The Lansing Village Administration emails the Lansing Journal an agenda for every meeting that they are going to hold. They email that to us ahead of time so that we can publish it and let the public know what is going to be discussed at those village meetings. People can read the agenda, see what's on it, and decide if they want to show up and speak to that or hear the discussion. That's just normal. That should not be an accomplishment. That's standard. But even that standard practice is not happening at Thornton Township. Thornton Township has refused to email the Lansing Journal agendas ahead of time. We have asked. They frequently cancel meetings without due public notice. They almost always start meetings late. Now, these are just very basic standards of running government offices. And when those standards are flouted, not only does it prevent business from happening, it erodes the trust of the people. That's what's happening in Thornton Township. But I also kind of want to look at the budget itself and the process that both boards have gone through to arrive at the budget. I'm going to put on the screen the Thornton Township budget. So let's just take a high-level look at the Thornton Township annual budget. It is 62 pages, and if you scroll through, you can see it's a very pretty looking budget. This is all introductory material. Mission and vision statement, organizational chart, Thornton Township long-term financial policies. I suppose that's all good information. And then here we are on page 14. This is the page I referenced earlier about the budgeting process. This outlines some of the steps that should have been gone through, and that continues into pages 15 and 16, which provide a calendar of the public involvement in the process. Then on page 17, we get into some information, the fund structure. But it's not until page 19 that we actually see some numbers. And this is what the numbers look like in the Thornton Township budget. All right, let me stop there because I want to compare that to the Village of Lansing budget. Just as an example, this is last year's budget, and it's 140 pages, just the Village of Lansing. So we have a budget summary page here. And this page, it's just a summary, and yet it has much more information than anything in the Thornton Township budget. And most of this document is numbers. A lot of detail in here. You can see over here in the thumbnails, these are all just numbers, 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 which is kind of what a budget is supposed to be. So that's the kind of detail that was missing from the Thornton Township budget, which led Trustee Chris Gonzalez to make this assessment.
The residents stated, we see this budget that, I hate to say it, but might as well have been done in crayon. Numbers, but there's nothing to back them up. What is the numbers? And that's the question. And I wish the other trustees would kind of see that, when I make a motion or we're not trying to stop things from working, people getting fed, but we just want to know what the hell's in here.
So yeah, it's interesting to compare the budgets themselves, the township budget versus the Lansing Village budget. But I'm also struck by the comparison of the process that both boards are involved in. In the Village of Lansing, the budget has been on the agenda at least twice, 2 separate meetings, and village board members were provided the information ahead of time so that they could spend time reviewing it and come to those meetings prepared to ask questions. And the questions were not seen as attacks by Finance Director Brian Hannigan. He understands that the trustees should want to know how budget decisions are being made. So it's very much a conversation Brian Hannigan is sharing information, the trustees are asking questions. Everybody just wants to make sure that resources are being allocated in a way that is best for the village, a way that allows the village to conduct the business of the community. And again, that is basic. That should not be considered outstanding. That should not be considered an accomplishment. That's just the sign of a functioning board. And of course, there are sometimes disagreements on the Lansing Village Board. Disagreement does not have to be a sign of dysfunction. A healthy team knows how to disagree productively. Of course, resources are limited and different departments have different priorities. Different trustees have different priorities. Sometimes our elected officials make decisions that are short-sighted or inconsistent. But overall, I think what is clear to me in comparing these videos is that for the most part, the Village of Lansing Board is there to serve the Village of Lansing. They consider themselves public servants. They are doing their best to make sure that community business gets done. That does not seem to be happening in Thornton Township. So anyway, yes, it was an interesting comparison for me. I hope it was interesting for you as well. As always, we appreciate at the Lansing Journal your viewership and your readership. And thank you for supporting local news that helps keep our community informed and connected. We'll see you next week.